We're just going to roll right into this because we've got a lot to do today. We've got an interesting subject here, lighting the world with solar energy. And we've got a pretty diverse panel here. So we're all going to give a brief self-introduction, and then we're going to turn it into an armchair conversation. And then there's also a super secret, amazing, never before heard before announcement coming on this panel, AREDAY special. So you'll hear it in a minute.
I don't know what that is. But
Yeah. Real quick, Third Sun Solar is a EPC, Utility Energy Finance is a development company. NABCEP, I'm on the board of directors of our certification body for North America. And then I'm on the board of directors for Amicus Solar Cooperative. So we do solar projects across the Midwest, residential all the way to agriculture and commercial, military. Amicus is really cool. You heard Lloyd Lee present yesterday. He's a member from Austin, Texas. We have 36 small, regional, but well-established solar companies that have banded together to form a cooperative so that we have a lot of procurement strength as well as best practices and intel, and I'm hiring them, they're hiring me. So if somebody needs solar in California, I can tell them, yes, I can do that. And then my San Francisco-based co-op member is the one who actually gets up on the roof. Utility Energy Finance, we heard lots yesterday about project finance and the financial engineering. And then on the subject matter today, we're headquartered in the poorest county in Ohio. The Appalachian coal fields of Ohio and Pennsylvania for years have powered and built this country and then been left decimated. I'm proud that we are employing the children, the sons mostly, and grandsons and great-grandsons of miners and people that worked in the coal fields. And we're proud to give them high-paying jobs with benefits. We're a benefit corporation or a B Corp, and that's going to be some of the subject that we talk about. I will turn the self-introduction mic over to Steve.
Well, thank you. So I have a lot of ties to this valley, and I have seen my inventions very active here, but it's nothing like what Chip has created here. Having the opportunity to share our vision is much more rewarding than my past examples of invention here in the valley. I started by ski racing. I used to sell ski tuning tools when I would travel around to different resorts. This is a young age. And then I was here developing ski boots and footwear and track lighting and learning about invention. I went to become a patent agent. I practiced patent law in Denver. And I wasn't satisfied with that. So I took everything that I know about mechanical engineering and patent law and I applied it to the base of the pyramid market. So we have 1 out of every 5 humans that live without electricity across the globe. They're in the most challenging environments to sell and to physically get products. But we went out with this audacious goal of bringing solar lights to people who are burning $30 billion of kerosene. And this product that all of the speakers have received as part of this conference, branded with the AREDAY logo, is able to save those individuals $60 per year by having 1 light. So we have a partnership with this community at large, not specifically with AREDAY, but we've been bringing these across the globe. We've sold 1.5 million of them, have impacted 10 million lives. And it's a real simple invention and could get into all of the complexities of our distribution, but the product itself is very simple. So thank you.
Super, Steve. And the name of Steve's company is Nokero, no kerosene. I'll go right to you, Erica.
Sure. So I co-founded about 10 years ago Grid Alternatives, and we are a nonprofit solar installer. We partner with low-income communities across the country to bring access to solar power into these communities, both for low-income customers as consumers of solar power, but also in the jobs market. Everything we do really has a workforce development component to train people to get jobs in the industry. So it's, sort of thinking about a transition to clean power in a way that includes everyone. So we do a lot of thinking about equity and inclusion, mostly in the domestic market in terms of, how all of our communities can benefit, how jobs in solar, jobs in renewables can lift up all of our communities. We do both single-family, multifamily, community solar, which is the array is over here, and people buy a subscription in, as well as some energy access work, both with our office in Nicaragua and also our tribal program where we work with tribal communities across the country to help them work with them meeting their energy needs. And then on the inclusion side and the jobs side, it's really a model where we provide this hands-on training, and we think a lot about how can we really change the trajectory of matching good jobs with communities that need those good jobs. And so we think a lot about what I would consider a X and Solar program. So we have a Women in Solar program. We have a Troops to Solar program, primarily serving vets. We have our tribal program working with Native peoples, and our Realizing an Inclusive Solar Economy program, which is really matching communities of color with good jobs. And so it's really about bringing sort of all of our communities to the table. And if you think about some of the narrative of earlier about like how are we going to really tackle climate change, it is our firm belief that one, this technology can benefit the communities that so often are downstream from traditional energy generation and are the communities that don't have the money to rebuild when their community floods or can't turn on the air conditioning in a heat wave and are struggling, but also need a seat at the table because otherwise we will not create the right solutions to climate change.
Amazing. Fantastic organization, Grid Alternatives. Turn it over to Matt. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Matt Elmore. I manage the Denver office for Microgrid Energy. We are a certified B Corporation and a clean energy services provider with offices all around the country. We focus on the commercial and industrial space, though we have done some residential work. And we are unique in that we do solar PV is probably our bread and butter, but we also do energy efficiency, deep energy retrofit projects, and we're most unique in that we focus on PACE financing. I'm just curious, how many people in here are familiar with PACE? We got an enthusiastic hand. Okay, that's great. We are unique in that we've been working on this for 3 or 4 years now, put a lot of time and effort into that. I don't know how much I'll talk about that over the next 30 minutes, but if there's anyone in the room that is intrigued by PACE, I'd love to chat with you. We also do battery storage, as our name would imply. The neon shirts in the room, an exciting project that's doing a panel, I think at 11 or shortly after 11, the Alliance Center in Denver. I encourage you all to stay for that. Some pretty innovative stuff happening there. I think that's about it. I'll keep it there, and then we'll keep it short and start the conversation.
Super. So we're going to take a deeper dive into the conversation. But real quick, the fancy announcement. I met Steve at AREDAY 3 years ago. We've become friends. I was in the Peace Corps in Central Africa in a grass-roofed mud hut, classic, no electric village.
What'd you use for light?
I used kerosene and candles, and it cost me money, and it stank up the place, and I probably damaged my lungs. Thank God I didn't live with that all my life. But now I formally am announcing our partnership with Nokero, Third Sun Solar. For every residential kilowatt sold, we will be donating or working with Nokero to facilitate a donation of one of their products to a child in the developing world to make that connection. So thanks you.
That's awesome.
So just one of the examples of what I call the magic of our day, of people chatting at the bar or at lunch, making connections, building on those connections, and collaborating for the goals that we all share here. So to start the armchair conversation, real quick, Erica, why did you found Grid Alternatives? How did this happen? Because you're a force to be reckoned with. You really are in jobs training and access to employment as well as clean energy. You are the leader in that space.
Thanks. So somebody asked me this earlier, and I was like, oh, I'm a social worker turned engineer turned back something in between, which of course is a natural trajectory. So I was working in the private sector doing renewable energy efficiency for big businesses. And so my now business partner and I got on the same travel schedule, and we did things like audit every building on Beale Air Force Base and recommend how the Air Force could, save money. And we audited every Verizon building on the Eastern Seaboard, and then did some, lighting retrofit projects where Verizon saved millions of dollars. And I would fly home to my home in Oakland, and this was in the sort of early 2000s, and California was going through an energy crisis. My neighbor Valma across the street could not pay her bills. There were like 5 people standing on the corner looking for work, and the industry was really poised for growth, except for, Bobby, who needs a job, couldn't get the experience to get that first job. It's that same conundrum of, well, how do you get work experience without a job, and how do you get a job without work experience? And so we hatched an idea that we would do what Grid Alternatives does. If we sort of did barn raising in the solar sense, that could then transform who has access. That's what communities know how to do. In general, whether or not it's Ohio or New York City, people know how to bring a dish to the potluck and roll up their sleeves and make something happen in their community. And so we sort of capitalized on what's natural and human about all of us. And then it's been sort of we begged 10 people to come out and volunteer with us on those first 2 installations. And from there, those 10 people told 10 people who told 10 people. And those first 2 families told their cousin, and their neighbor across the street, and everybody, and showed off their bill savings. And we now have 15 bricks and mortar offices across the United States, office in Nicaragua. And we've installed over 7,000 systems, 24 megawatts, all sort of one system at a time, and trained 27,000 people.
27,000 people. I can't believe it. There's a lot of media and movie production people and connected folks here. There has not yet been an awesome professional documentary made about this story. I think it's a great story, so think about that.
Thank you for the promotion.
Yeah.
I had a question just to follow up to that. In thinking about battery storage and its relation to solar PV's development over the last decade, I think that battery storage is in a similar place that PV was maybe 10 years ago or so, and that the technology's there, it can work. There aren't any market incentives or mechanisms or really business plans out there yet, at least that can be streamlined. And I'm wondering how you see grid or the battery storage from residential or beyond that affecting the market or the low-income population in a good way or a negative way, as we saw sometime in the first part of when solar came aboard. Yeah.
So first off, these products started off with nickel cadmium batteries, and we all know that the cadmium is a good thing for the environment. Moved on to nickel metal hydride, and now the industry has really moved to lithium iron phosphate, which is what this product has. So I'm not dealing with the shipping container size of storage for a home in Hawaii. I'm dealing with a single 18650 battery or a 1450. These are the individual cells that make up the larger batteries in the Tesla system or whatnot. So lithium iron phosphate does have a very high cycle life. It's generically referred to as 2,000 cycles. So you're able to talk about a lifespan that reaches much further than a 500 or 1,000 cycle of nickel metal hydride. So when you get away from the individual cell conversation that I just said, you're just getting into the pure mechanics of financing it, which I believe is your world. And so maybe I could now kind of push the conversation back to you. And
well, I think that's still to be figured out in many ways. innovative projects like the Alliance Center, that's part of figuring that out. I don't claim to have any answers for that. I think where you have higher demand charges, it's going to make more sense for storage, bottom line, and that varies by utility, by state, by rate structure. I mean, it's all over the place. So I don't have a business plan for that. It's a case-by-case basis, but I'm wondering, do you guys have any thoughts on how you would integrate that into your work?
Well, here's a quick poll. After Elon Musk made his pretty well done announcement about Powerwall, how many phone calls have anyone in the room or all of us gotten about folks that want to go off the grid with their suburban house for $3,000? Our phone was ringing off the hook for 2 weeks, and people were really disappointed that for some reason the marketing people at Tesla didn't talk to the engineers at Tesla, and there's some confusion there. But it's an exciting space. I think your allegory of 10 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, it's kind of the wild, wild west. There's going to be trials and errors and mistakes. Are you all doing anything with storage or in your tribal stuff?
I mean, the interesting through line about both financing, storage, and just generally, if we're talking about sort of the democratization of solar, which is really the, what ties all of us together here, is that if we think about what was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, where really solar was a niche technology for wealthy environmentalists, creative financing has really pushed that down into the middle class. And for those of us working at sort of the base of the pyramid, we've started with need and have pushed up. And there's a place where we meet in the middle. And I think the way we look forward at, how are we going to really create mass adoption and sort of a new economy that lifts up all of our communities, I think it's going to include all of these solutions. I mean, storage has to be part of a resiliency narrative, and it has to be part of how utilities and the solar industry work together around what's happened in the Hawaiian market, where there's so much adoption that it's like, oh, well, what do we do when the supply is this big and we don't have that much need? I mean, storage is becoming an increasing part of the narrative, the same way financing has become integral to the narrative.
Cool. So we're going to open it up for questions. While people are getting their mics ready, I'm going to ask Steve a quick question about, are you tracking, or do you have a sense about how your product is driving economic development or microenterprise or people's ability to participate?
Yeah, we have a number of partners that, so our distribution breaks into two buckets. There's aid distribution and then paid distribution. So aid distribution is over half of our business, and those are bulbs that are literally given away at zero value. And then paid, which are through hawker networks. A friend of AREDAY's is EarthSpark, and they have 100 entrepreneurs in Haiti selling the lights on a rent-to-own basis. So this is 120 nights at 12 cents per night. So this is a way to address the upfront cost of purchasing something. I'm going to touch on a big macro trend that's happening too, where pay-as-you-go is becoming very popular in our industry, and we've chosen to stay out of that. Although about $120 million of investment poured into it last year, because we are still working on our distribution models for reliably getting these into countries and to sell through. So
yeah, like any entrepreneurial invention, it's evolving, and you're learning as you go.
It's not just about the technology.
Yeah,
it's everything.
Everything's connected. Financing
is a huge part of it, as we have the benefit to so much financial tools here in the U.S. that our customers across the developing world just simply do not.
My biggest mentors as an entrepreneur were the folks in Africa buying a big bag of rice, breaking it into smaller bags of rice, and making it happen. It's amazing how.
And thank you for your service as a PCV. That's great.
Oh, that's super. Thanks. Okay, who's got the microphone for the first question? Go ahead.
Hi there. It's exciting to see the progress tracked and start thinking about what's needed to really get us in the bigger picture downfield. And earlier this morning, as Fenton and his group were talking about the marketing needs here and what we should do in terms of collaborating on our message, and our concepts, policy, what's driving everything. I was just in one of the sessions upstairs on the utilities, And that is such a complex, so many barriers in trying to get solar and wind renewables into the energy sector. That's a really important piece for us to do, I think, a separate media story under our whole umbrella of what we want to do, and line it out so that everybody understands kind of like the story of stuff on what the whole picture is, how simple and easy it can be to make community decisions in working with utilities, policies, and your bottom line, and your safety and your health. So I would just like to spin this conversation into our media and marketing needs to educate our consumers. And what would be your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, maybe Matt, you want to handle that? How important
Yeah.
getting the message out is?
You know, we work mainly with commercial and industrial customers, but it's a similar difficulty there. We definitely had a lot of them reach out to us after the Powerwall announcement to talk, can we put 40 Powerwalls in our building? And we said no. And so you know, outreach is incredibly important, but I would say that from my perspective, the policy is really the foundation of that. And for instance, in Colorado, we have a relatively aggressive RPS, but we're pretty much there for the most part. And increasing that RPS, similar to what's been done in Oregon, will probably have the biggest overall impact on the renewables industry here, not just solar, but the others. So I really, from Microgrid's perspective, we focus on that, either whether it's statewide policy, obviously the federal policy, getting the ITC passed, and the bonus depreciation. That's an incredible foundation, but the state level is really is where the big market changes can really be made possible. So as a company, we don't really market or educate in that way. We do a lot of work around PACE and educating, but we don't really have a typical marketing plan. It's kind of an organic approach through partners where we get our customers.
One quick anecdote. We started the solar tour, the American Solar Energy Society National Solar Tour. It all happens on one day in lots of different states. We started it in Ohio 16 years ago, and it was packed. It was mobbed. Everybody wanted to touch and see and understand and ask questions. The last couple of years, attendance has been going down, and I was at first disappointed, but really now I'm realizing that we've arrived. People are no longer, they're no longer, want to see it. They know about it. Their neighbor has solar. So we're really making huge progress on getting that word out, getting the education out. You want to take something out there?
Well, just to add that I think, so much of marketing is telling stories, right? We're all collections of the stories we tell about ourselves. When you looked at some of those slides of like what works, we've moved from like the world is ending to like, here's a face that looks like yours. And here's a story of your community. And so I think even to the question you asked about utilities, there are great stories out there of utilities and government and business being incredible partners. I mean, we're doing our project, just down the road in Holy Cross that's a partnership with Holy Cross Energy and the Colorado Energy Office, and it's all low-income solar and a community solar array. And so I think, we need to be telling the stories of success that then motivate behavior as opposed to the stories of non-success, which aren't very motivating at all.
Frankly, we all have stories of non-success of solar products. I mean, we could probably raise our hands and say, hey, who's bought something that's solar that let them down? So this is, what happens is technologies come up, and we are the visionaries, we are the early adopters, right? And our task is to get the middle majority, early, the technology laggers, to get them to come into the fold. And so we're actually embarking into the US, and we're deeply considering going into the toy market, because we have something that's portable and affordable, and kids love these things. We keep hearing that. But the further we expand on getting products into the hands of children is when they then do behavior change of their parents. And we commissioned an entire study around this. We've had deep research done in Kenya and India and one other country that's skipping my mind right now, where we identified 40 key impediments to behavior change. And to communicate those a lot of times is the challenge. you know, so.
Fascinating.
Anyways.
Time for maybe one or two more questions. Who's got the mic? You're up.
Hey, how you doing, guys? Got unit 3 here. Hey, thanks for being here. Just a quick question. So as we see the growth of solar as an industry and storage, it's much to the chagrin of incumbent utilities, right? And they're thinking about imposing these net metering fees or interconnection fees. And I'm kind of interested to see your perspective about how that's going to affect the growth in the future, and if what can we do about that kind of thing.
Who had that Mark Twain quote yesterday? I did. Say it again, loudly.
First, they ignore you. Then, they laugh at you. Next, they fight you. And then you win.
So that was brilliant, and I've seen that quote before. I'm going to steal that quote. We're at the then they fight you stage. For a long time, solar was, this fleck on the wall, this little fly on the shoulder. The policy fights that we're going up against now, ALEC legislation and Edison Institute model legislation, Nevada, it's everywhere. I see it as a struggle, but also a huge positive sign that we really have arrived. We're important. All the analysts and futurists acknowledge that we are the future, and some of the incumbent fossil fuel industry folks are realizing this. NRG was way ahead of the curve, too early for David Crane, unfortunately. But many others are following in that, and they will be part of the solution. Others will go the way of the buggy whip manufacturers and will be put into the background. Long term, we're going to need grid operators. I see them as being a huge part of our interdependent, connected energy infrastructure. Matt, are you involved in utility fights?
Oh yeah, I mean, they're all, every area, every utility, every state. It's kind of the same discussion, although it has its nuances. The specific discussion around an increase in demand charges and a reduction in kilowatt hour or volumetric charges is an important one, and in many ways, if you increase the fixed fees and the demand charges, there's more opportunity for storage. But storage isn't there where we can just replace that immediately, right? We still got a long way to go with that. So I don't think it's a black and white issue there, but I do think that there could be some additional opportunities that come about, but the storage space isn't ready to really commoditize and streamline their plan to take advantage of that as soon as we'd like.
One quick last question. Who's got the mic?
Good morning. So I think I've actually started to hear answers from all of you to my question, but the question is, and I'd like to hear each of you answer it, what is the single greatest rate limiting factor that's impeding the scale up of your incredible work, whether that is policy, technology, or market driven?
What a great wrap-up question. Single greatest factor. Bam.
Policy. I think good low-income solar policy in this country has driven market adoption in a way that can then be done with some really great things with both, the private sector philanthropy and the nonprofit industry. But government on the local level at cities and states can really lead and has led in solar adoption. So asking ourselves the questions, how are all of our communities going to benefit, and creating good policy that reflects that answer is critical.
Super. I'm going to riff on that and say policy, but more specifically, and this is my libertarian free market side coming out, I am so tired of folks making a buck off of the commons and externalizing their costs. I think the specific policy we need, thank you, is a price on carbon. And as soon as solar and other clean technologies are competing with a true cost of our conventional energy, we won't need any policies, any RPSs, any special grants, anything else. We'll compete on a level playing field as soon as carbon is priced into fossil fuels.
From Nokero's perspective, it's finding aligned equity investors, people that understand what we're up to and embrace what we're up to.
You got it. Price of carbon. That would solve a lot of issues I mean, if that's not an option, increasing RPSs, I mean, that's piecemeal though, that's state by state. It only gets you so far, but the bigger picture is putting a value on the pollution and the emissions.
Super. All right, thanks everybody.